Hi friends, welcome to my channel, and today we shall read the novel The God of Small Things, which is written by Arundhati Roy. So here starts our chapter 1. So let's start reading. May in M&M is a hot, brooding month. The days are long and humid. The river shrinks and black crows gorge on bright mangoes in still, dusk-green trees. Red bananas ripen. Jackfruits burst. Dissolute blue bottles hum vacuously in the fruity air. Then they stun themselves against clear window panes and die, fatly baffled in the sun. The nights are clear, but suffused with sloth and sullen expectation. But by early June, the southwest monsoon breaks, and there are 3 months of wind and water with short spells of sharp, glittering sunshine that thrill children to snatch to play with. The countryside turns an immodest grain. Boundaries blur as tapioca fences take root and bloom. Brick walls turn moss green. Pepper vines snake up electric poles. Wild creepers burst through laterite banks and spill across flooded roads. Boats ply in the bazaars, and small fish appear in the puddles that fill the PWD potholes on the highways. It was raining when Rahel came back to M&N. Slanting silver ropes slammed into loose earth, blowing it up like gunfire. The old house on the hill wore its steep, gabled roof pulled over its ears like a low hat. The walls, streaked with moss, had grown soft and bulged a little with dampness that seeped up and from the ground. The wild, overgrown garden was full of the whisper and scurry of small lives. In the undergrowth, a rat snake rubbed itself against a glistening stone. Hopeful yellow bullfrogs cruised the scummy pond for mates. A drenched mongoose flashed across the leaves-strewn driveway. The house itself looked empty. The doors and windows were locked, the front veranda bare, unfurnished. But the sky blue Plymouth with chrome tail fins was still parked outside and inside. Baby Kochamma was still alive. She was Rahel's baby grand aunt, her grandfather's younger sister. Her name was really Naomi Ippy, but everybody called her Baby. She became Baby Kochamma when she was old enough to be an aunt. Rahel hadn't come to see her, though. Neither niece nor baby grand aunt labored under any illusions on that account. Rahel had come to see her brother, Istha. They were two egg twins. Dizygotic, doctors called them. Born from separate but simultaneously fertilized eggs. Isthapen was the older by 18 minutes. They never did look much like each other, Istha and Rahel, and even when they were thin-armed children, flat-chested, warm-ridden, and Elvis Presley puffed, there was none of the usual who is who and which is which, from over-smiling relatives or the Syrian Orthodox bishops who frequently visited the M&N house for donations. The confusion lay in a deeper, more secret place. In those early amorphous years, when memory had only just begun, when life was full of beginnings and no ends, and everything was forever, Isthapen and Rahel thought of themselves together as me and separately, individually as we or us, as though they were a rare breed of Siamese twins, physically separate but with joint identities. Now, these years later, Rahel had a memory of waking up one night giggling at Istha's funny dream. She had other memories too that she has no right to have. She remembers, for instance, though she hadn't been there, what the lemon drink man did to Istha in Abhilash talkies. She remembers the taste of the tomato sandwiches, Istha sandwiches that Istha ate on the Madras mail to Madras. And these are only the small things. Anyway, now she thinks of Istha and Rahel as them because separately the two of them are no longer what they were or ever thought they would be. So here is the third page. Ever. Their lives have a size and a shape now. Istha has his and Rahel hers. Edges, borders, boundaries, brings, and limits have appeared like a team of trolls on their separate horizons. Short creatures with long shadows patrolling the blurry end. Gentle half moons have gathered under their eyes, and they are as old as Amu was when she died, 31. Not old, not young, but a viable, diable age. They were nearly born on a bus, Istha and Rahel, the car in which Baba, their father, was taking Amu, their mother, to hospital in Shillong to have them, broke down on the winding tea estate road in Assam. They abandoned the car and flagged down a crowded state transport bus, with the queer compassion of the very poor for the comparatively well off, or perhaps only because they saw how hugely pregnant Amu was. Seated passengers made room for the couple, and for the rest of the journey, Istha was Istha and Rahel's father had to hold their mother's stomach with them in it to prevent it from wobbling. That was before they were divorced and Amu came back to live in Kerala. According to Istha, if they had been born on the bus, they would have got free bus rides for the rest of their lives. It wasn't clear where he had got this information from or he had knew these things. But for years the twins harbored a faint resentment against their parents for having diddled them out of a lifetime of free bus rides. They also believed that if they were killed on a zebra crossing, the government would pay for their funerals. They had the definite impression that that was what zebra crossings were meant for, free funerals. Of course, there were no zebra crossings to get killed on M&M, or for that matter, even in Kottayam, which was the nearest town. But they had seen some from the car window when they went to Cochin, which was a 2-hour drive away. The government never paid for Sophie Moll's funeral because she wasn't killed on a zebra crossing. She had hers in M&M in the old church with the new paint. She was Istha and Rahel's cousin, their uncle Chaco's daughter. She was visiting from England. Istha and Rahel were 7 years old when she died. Sophie Moll was almost 9. She had a special child-sized coffin, satin-lined, brass handle shine. She lay it in her yellow crimpline bell-bottoms with her hair in a ribbon and her maid in England go-go bag that she loved. Her face was pale and as wrinkled as a dhobi's thumb from being in water for too long. The congregation gathered around the coffin and the yellow church swelled like a throat with the sound of sad singing. The priests with curly beards swung pots of frankincense on chains and never smiled at babies the way they did on usual Sundays. The long candles on the altar were bent, the short ones weren't. An old lady, masquerading as a distant relative whom nobody recognized but who often surfaced next to bodies at funerals, a funeral junkie, a latent necrophiliac, but Cologne on a wad next to bodies at funerals, a funeral like a latent necrophiliac, but Cologne on a wad of cotton wool, and with a devout and gently challenging air dabbed it on Sophie Moll's forehead. Sophie Moll smelled of cologne and coffinwood. Margaret Cochamma, Sophie Moll's English mother, wouldn't let Chaco, Sophie Moll's biological father, put his arm around her to comfort her. The family stood huddled together. Margaret Cochamma, Chaco, baby Cochamma, and next to her, her sister-in-law, Mamachi and Rahel, and Sophie Moll, and next to her, grandmother. Mamachi was almost blind and always wore dark glasses when she went out of the house. Her tears trickled down from behind them and trembled along her jaw like raindrops on the edge of a roof. She looked small and ill in her crisp of white sari. Chaco was Mamachi's only son. Her own grief grieved her. His devastated her. Though Amuisa and Rahel were allowed to attend the funeral, they were made to stand separately, not with the rest of the family. Nobody would look at them. It was hot in the church, and the white edges of the arum lilies crisped and curled. A bee died in a coffin flower. Amu's hand shook, and her hymn book with it. Her skin was cold. Istha stood close to her, barely awake, his aching eyes glittering like glass, his burning cheek against the bare skin of Amu's trembling hymn book holding arm. Rahel, on the other hand, was wide awake, fiercely vigilant and brittle with exhaustion from her battle against real life. She noticed that Sophie Moll was awake for her funeral. She showed Rahel two things. Thing one was the newly painted high dome of the yellow church that Rahel hadn't ever looked at from the inside. It was painted blue like the sky, with drifting clouds and tiny whizzing jet flames with white trails that crisscrossed in the clouds. It's true and must be said that it would have been easier to notice these things lying in a coffin, looking up than standing in the pews, hemmed in by sad hips and hymn books. Rahel thought of the someone who had taken the trouble to go up there with cans of paint, white for the clouds, blue for the sky, silver for the jets, and brushes and thinner. She imagined up there someone like Vilutha, bare-bodied and shining, sitting on a plank swinging from the scaffolding in the high dome of the church, painting silver jets in the blue church sky.